It's Real Talk, Episode 8, Greta Gerwig. And I'm your host, Al the Movie Lion. On today's show, Little Lila, the silver screen sugar glider, helps me score Little Women. Painter Jessica Collins brings a box of communion wafers to help me grade Lady Bird. And real friend cinematographer Jeremy McDaniel returns to the show to score Barbie. Now quick, leave a like, subscribe, and we'll get Gerwiggin'. Real Talk is powered by Real Digital. If you work for a brand or agency producing content, keep it real by setting up a consultation at www.realdigital.media to see how your next campaign can come in ahead of schedule and under budget. The following review is brought to you by Gummy Ship Radio, the podcast where two childhood girlfriends, Victoria and Brittany, synthesize their brains to comprehensively figure out what exactly is the Kingdom Hearts lore. Catch all the episodes from Season 1 at Gummy Ship Radio on YouTube. Rather bringing an iconic American doll to life or allowing audiences to experience adolescence through the lens of a teenage girl in 2003, Greta Gerwig is a master of translating the female experience to the big screen. In 2019, Gerwig adapted Louisa May Alcott's classic Little Women and was supported by an ensemble cast of players the likes of which is rarely seen, and earned a global box office well north of $325 million for her troubles. This is a tale of passion, doubt, pressure, rejection, and of course sisterhood, and the constant back and forth between hyper-rational decision-making and emotionally fueled surges of temper gives the incredible cast a diverse tapestry of scenarios to flex in. I found Little Women to be much more reserved than most of Gerwig's other work, and perhaps appropriately so. But does that leave the film missing something? There are gorgeous shots layered within this classic story, and I'm excited to kick off our spotlight episode on Greta Gerwig by discussing Little Women. I had to call in the littlest lady I know, Lila the sugar screen silver glider, to help me score this romantic epic. Lila, I don't want you to become an ornament for society, so please speak freely. And might I say, what a lovely, giant, flowery hat you're wearing.
Such a pleasure to be here with you and to discuss this movie with you. This film is definitely something I would love to dive into with you. And yeah, thanks. Compliments to the hat. Appreciate that.
This picture came out 2019. We're talking Little Women today. You are, of course, objectively maybe the littlest lady I know.
I might be the littlest
Yeah.
sugar glider you've ever seen. I saw this film in theaters with my mom. That was like, and yeah, it came out on Christmas, so it was definitely like a holiday trip that we took together. So I saw it then. My knowledge of Little Women actually stems from a Friends episode where Joey and Rachel trade books. So Joey reads Little Women and Rachel reads The Shining. Like they give little details of what happened. And I remember like watching the show growing up and hearing essentially the whole story get spoiled. So when my mom and I watched it, I'm going to be fully 100% honest, I thought it was fine. And then I watched it last year around Christmas with some girlfriends from work, and I was hysterically crying. And then when I watched it this previous time to prep for this episode, it was the most amount I've ever cried to the
Wow.
film. It like it I don't know, it finds something new to like hang on to and destroy in me, but also piece back together. I absolutely love this film. It definitely has a couple of things that we'll get into, but I love this film so much. Every character explores the different shades of complications of growing as a woman, growing into a woman. Oh my God, hold on, pause, because I actually might get teary-eyed because it really it really, really, really hit me, and I wasn't expecting it to. The ending when they actually show them or like versions of them as children, just like playing together was so beautiful. It was so both heartbreaking and fulfilling at the same time. We're talking about plot, right? Yeah.
We are.
Just like the sorry.
No, it's
Um,
okay.
but yeah, like everyone, and then even like their relationship and how they've let in Lori and Lori's father into their little club, into their little world, and how they, become a pillar of their community with opening the new school and it's just beautiful. It's just beautiful. The exploration of the different shades of womanhood, I think they nailed so, so, so well. Greta's pacing is definitely not of the ordinary, and that is both a good and could be a challenging thing. And I felt that even this third watch, I love this movie. This is probably hot take, possibly, but I think this is a stellar holiday movie. I feel like this could worm its way into like holiday classics. It gives fall, it gives Christmas, it gives winter. Hell, there's a beach scene. This could be summer if you wanted it to be.
But there,
It's a film for all seasons.
but there is a Christmas dinner, a Christmas scene
There
where they all
is
come together. That's when their father comes home for the first time, which is a really
Bob Odenkirk. Let's
yeah, which was a little that was a bit of an interesting casting choice. But yeah, that was one of my favorite sets in the entire movie,
hmm
the Christmas set. So I
Yeah.
totally align with that. I don't know that I walked away from that thinking it was a holiday movie, but that's maybe because I watched it not anywhere near the holidays. And
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
totally agree that yeah, this is something, especially having families come together. What's interesting, this is one of the rare movies we review on the show that's actually a PG movie. I certainly didn't think that until I was writing it in my notes, but it's kind of a really refreshing reminder that just a good movie doesn't, it can be completely void of certain
Yeah.
language and sexuality and
Yeah.
blood and drug use,
Yeah.
and you don't even notice if you're absorbed in the story.
I had no idea this was PG. Never would
Yes.
have known.
So you could watch it with the kids. You could watch it, and I think because of the cast, especially younger generations, they are going to see
Yes.
Hermione up there. They are going to see whatever character Florence Pugh plays in the
And
Marvel
she's in
movies.
Marvel. She's in
Yeah, that's what
Marvel.
I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever that
Totally.
one is,
Totally.
Diet
I forgot
Black
her
Widow
name.
or
Black
Black
Widow's
Widow
sister or
2. Yeah,
something. Yeah. Little Widow. I don't know.
the Little Widow. We coined it there, the Little Widow. But but I think that that's one of the things that makes this movie really special is that it is something you
Agreed.
can put on with anybody, and I do think you could get really absorbed in it. Like I said, it's not for everybody. I do want to jump to the end before I get your score for the plot because one of the things that
Yeah.
I really appreciated about it is there's this really kind of clever. You can kind of decide if the ending, much like the last time you were on the show, Lila,
Mm.
one of the last times you were on, we talked Pan's Labyrinth, which kind of gives you that
Yes.
dual ending. This sort of gives you the same, where you can kind of decide for
Yes.
yourself if Joe is actually living the life that she wants, or
Yeah.
is living this sort of novel, this written life that's
Yeah.
really in the book. And I thought the way that was handled was really, really clever. For any given point in the story that you've been watching, is actually what she's been writing in this story and
Right.
that's been coming together. But I'll shut up. What did you give the
No,
plot?
no,
One out
no.
of 10. 1 out of 10, Lila.
1 out of 10 for plot. Like, I'm gonna give this like a heavy 9. It's a solid 9.
Let's start with Aunt March. We've got Meryl Streep as sort
Oh
of
my God.
the the heavy, the sort of heel, if you will,
Yes.
the not so one. But then you have the incredible Laura Dern. It feels like you almost have two sets of sisters that have combined. I feel like Florence Pugh and
Yes.
Eliza Scanlon feel like one set of sisters, and then Emma and
Yes.
Saoirse feel like another. But whatever, movie magic.
All together, like in a big average way, like not average way, but like if we're gonna do it like in a math sort of way, on average, like this is a stellar, stellar cast. I think Saoirse, Florence, and Timothy carry and run this show. The three of them I thought were excellent. I thought that they were excellently casted, excellently executed. I had a few, making this very clear. I love this film. I will be watching this film at least once a year for the rest of my life. I felt like I noticed an example of a surprise casting that I felt worked really well and a surprise casting that I felt was very distracting. Meryl Streep being Aunt March, I thought was a surprising casting and executed beautifully. Bob Odenkirk, and then this is not any shade at him. The way that I see them choosing him, it was like, okay, he is known for comedy. I just felt like his casting was a bit distracting. Why? Why? Is the dad funny? Like, let's hear some jokes, dad. Like, you're back from the war for a bit. Like, let's hear some, and nothing. Again, not any shade to Bob, but why was he casted in such a, if it wasn't a role that like is this funny guy or just something that showcased his talents?
There's somebody at CAA who can answer that question because I feel like
Probably.
this is probably an example of like, yes, just an agent who was like, no, no, he can do it, he can do it. But yeah, it totally pulls you out of the movie. I mean, when he
It
pops
did.
up as the dad, it's just this, like what? And
Yes. And then he says the title of the film, and then it gets into the Family Guy clip where I'm like, now all of it is distracting. Completely,
yeah,
totally, you're right. Like, pulled me
and
out of it.
yeah, but he is a character actor that has been around for
Yes.
decades. I mean, this is a guy who pops up in episodes of Seinfeld for goodness sake. So,
Yes.
yeah, I
Yes.
think it was, sometimes there's inspired casting and then sometimes maybe there's some inspired casting that just unfortunately doesn't land.
I feel like between the casting of Bob Odenkirk and Emma Watson, actually, now she looks the part, she presents the part. I just feel like, oh, I don't even really want to say this because it really like it hurts my own self to say this. Actually, her American accent is distracting. I know Emma's a huge fan of this show, and I know she's a huge fan of Lila, and Lila's a huge fan of her. It's just at this point in her career. Now, I don't, this was, we're getting closer to 10 years ago, which I know it's not super true, but it is getting closer to it. I don't know what her, training and process is like now, but at this time, just her American accent, unfortunately, was a little distracting and not as much as Bob, unfortunately, as well.
Bob's American accent
But
was the
I'm
worst. Yeah.
sorry. Bob's American accent got me so distracted. The part where they're all British, I was like, look at everyone thriving. Half this cast is British. Like,
But
this is
that's what I was
great.
gonna say because it doesn't help that they do that because you're kind of
Yes.
reminded. That's how I was like, oh, wait a
Yes.
minute, that's what you sound like.
That's right. I'm fine with it. I think it's just like, yeah, if you're asking me to get granular, it's a little I know she's not American, so it's really tough. But like Florence, fantastic. Saoirse, fantastic.
I love the relationship between Amy and Joe because it's so volatile.
Yes.
It's back and forth all over the map. But then you just have the, Meg character who's kind of sprinkled in there and doesn't really, I don't know, I hate to say it, but just doesn't at any point seem as substantial as the other
Yeah.
characters. And I pulled some numbers. So we hear in the movie that she spends $50 not on a dress, but on fabric
The
for the
fabric.
dress.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So I went and I looked up because I wanted to know $50 in 1860, which is when this movie, or when the movie takes place, the story takes place. What would that look like if we converted it today? So $1 in 1860 is worth $38.46 today, meaning that $50 of fabric in 1860 would have cost you in the year of our Lord $1,946.
Meg, 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 Meg.
Yeah, she's
That's
$54 shy of 2 grand. So when her husband is like, "Hey, sorry I don't make enough for your fabric habit," I want everybody out there to know
damn.
if your boo came home and you found out they spent 2K at Joann's, you might be a little upset too. So I think he
Oh,
very well, all things considered. So I just wanted
oh man. That is not good, Meg. That does not bode well.
to.
Yikes a Rooney. Holy shit. Okay.
Before I get a number out of you, I've got to play a quick game. Every once in
Oh,
a while, we break out a little game to play here. So I'm
oh.
gonna have to put you on the spot here, Lila. We are gonna play a game called Which Sister from the March Family is which Sex in the City girl? Sex in the City wife.
What a game.
So I think
What a
it
game.
goes without saying that Joe is Carrie, right? They're both writers.
1000% Joe is Carrie in every which way. The washiness, the kind of relenting self-thinking, not selfish, but self-thinking. Yes,
So
they are
let's
cut from the same cloth.
So I will give you the Sex and the City character. You give me the sister. Next up, we have Miranda. Who are you designating as Miranda? I think I know who I would pick, but I'll.
Think Beth is Miranda.
That's what I'm going with.
Yeah,
I'm
so
going
you're
with
saying,
this.
and I think in the way of like voice of reason. Now, Miranda's voice of reason and Beth's voice of reason are two different,
No, but
messengers, but they're both the voice of reason, or like they're the,
yeah,
yeah,
that's sort of
yeah,
bedrock. Yeah. Well, then
yes,
Charlotte,
is Meg March.
100%.
1 jillion%. 1 jillion%
All
is
right, well,
Meg
that only
March.
leaves us with one, and I don't think it's too far off to say
I
that
don't think so either.
Amy and my God,
Amy and Samantha
Samantha. Thank
are,
you. I
yes,
almost
cut from
lost
the same
some.
cloth.
I almost lost some hood points there when I forgot Samantha.
So one of the things that really also stood out to me that I can recognize now at my third watch and now understand why it bothered me was that one of the things I noticed the first watch I had with this film was that I didn't know that they were supposed to be starting. I think Beth, no, Amy's the youngest. Amy's the youngest, and then it's Beth, and then it's Joe, and then it's Meg. At her youngest, Amy is supposed to be 12. And when they get to current, it's supposed to be 7 years later. So I think she's like
19,
20.
1920.
20 by the time her and Lori get together. So she's supposed to start at 12 and end at 20. Now, I understand why they wanted to keep the main casting, but the scene where Amy is in the school and she, draws the picture and she gets punished by the teacher, I legitimately thought she was like a teacher's aide. I was like, she's surrounded by like 10-year-olds and the whole thing, and it's just, so it took me this third watch to actually realize, I'm like, this whole time they're supposed to be going from 12 to 20 at its youngest, right? And so on and so forth for everyone else. If you wanted to keep the girls as Saoirse, Emma, Florence, and Eliza, that's fine. But like, could we not start them like at 16?
Florence Pugh is 24 years old in 2019. So
Yeah.
that's the release of the film, but even if they're shooting this a year before, she's still 22, 23, playing a 12-year-old. That's a pretty big stretch.
If you're not going to hire, or if you're not going to have 12-year-olds portray them and then bring them, to our main four girls, that also probably would have helped with the understanding of the time. But that was something that I finally noticed at my third watch, that I was like, this is what bothered me. Why not start them at 16? I don't hate the film at all. It's definitely a solid 8.
Hey, you heard her, Florence. Sorry, as good of an actress as you are, you can't just shave off 12 years, especially when that's 50% of your life at 22 years
Respectfully,
old. Um,
respectfully.
a big ask for any actress. And look, we're talking now about visual storytelling, and that plays a bit into the visual storytelling because as you said, it took a few times for you to watch this to fully be absorbed, and that sort of
Yes.
casting choice of saying like, hey, this is a child when you're looking at a grown woman that can
Yes.
obviously pull you out of it. Otherwise, I feel like much is the case with the use of sound in this movie, the visual storytelling is pretty straightforward. This is a
Yes.
period piece. It's really beautiful showcase of the
Yes.
locations of the things. But I did want to call attention. There are these moments, in particular, the opening shot of the movie, which is just this
Hmm.
the light coming through this glass door as Joe is standing in front of it. And you just see her silhouette, and she's sort of taking a moment before she walks in to the space. And I don't know, I really kept finding myself appreciating these just frames, these really
Yeah.
beautiful frames that are just sort of nestled within each act. Once you kind of get out of those frames, I don't want it's certainly more than paint by numbers, but it is very kind of straightforward.
One of the visual storytelling tools that they use that I don't really remember seeing a whole lot of. I know that it's been done in other films, but like I felt like it worked with this one, was the two scenes where a letter is being read and whoever
Yes.
wrote it stares straight into the camera and is like reading it out loud. I thought it felt clever. It felt so 19th century. It feels like a portrait. It feels like a painted portrait. Set design, stellar, the costumes, and as I feel like some things with period pieces, not a lot of them, but with period pieces, sometimes the wardrobe can feel like costumes, where the wardrobe here felt like it was lived in. It felt real. It felt like this is actually how they lived. And when I don't think about that, then obviously you've done your job and you've done it well. The subtlety of the warm hues for current versus the cold hues for past, especially the reveal of the fate of our dear Beth, like lost it. I absolutely lost it. That was so devastating, and I really felt the coldness of her fate. Visual storytelling, pretty straightforward. It's a nine. It's a nine for me.
And later in today's episode, I'm going to be talking with a photographer friend of mine, Jessica Collins, about Lady Bird. And that's a very
Nice.
naturalistic approach. Like, that's not a movie that
Yes.
has a really stylized look. Obviously, Barbie, hyper stylized at times, at least when we're in Barbie land. But this is a movie that, at least from a lighting perspective, yeah, has a very, very naturalistic approach, kind of Barry Lyndon-esque in the sense that there's a lot of natural candlelight, a lot of sunlight
Yes.
just coming in through windows, especially the cold
Yes.
blue light that kind of comes in. And it's not flashy by any stretch of the imagination, but that shot you talked about, or the few times it's used where the person writing the letter is looking into the camera. I really, really responded to that, and it made me
Yeah.
feel like, again, it was almost like the cinematic equivalent of something you'd see in live theater, where it's just very
Yes.
simple, but it really maximizes what you're doing. And
Yes.
I think it was so good, it did make me wish there was maybe a little more of that going on. So it is almost like a victim of its own,
That's a good point.
yeah, its own inspired
Yeah.
moments where I'm like, whoa, could we have more of this? But at the same time, that
Yeah.
come later in a very long movie, so there might just be a little bit of like, hey, we got to give you something new. I got the nine locked in. Let's move on to use of sound.
It is also pretty straightforward,
Yeah,
and this isn't a knock to it, but it's not super. I don't look at this film for its sound. I mean, the score absolutely put me into this space. Everything brought me in, and so much so that it didn't. Oh, I'm really trying to like rack my brain if there was like a certain sound. I mean,
if I can jump in, that I thought was a really
yeah,
great silent moment is when Beth dies, and we see
yeah,
the mom reacting,
yeah,
and Laura Dern is sort of screaming, but it's just silent. And
yeah.
I thought that was the best use of sound in the movie, which is obviously no sound, but that was the only real notable thing on my end. I mean,
See,
yeah,
that's what I was gonna say too, but I was like, I mean, no, of course it's worth mentioning because it is such a big plot point. It's a big turning point. It's really her death is what separates the current and the past.
other than that, I mean, I feel like there's not a whole lot of notable stuff. I mean, the score
Yes.
is really, again, I hate to use the term paint by numbers because it sounds maybe more condescending than I mean it to, but
Yeah.
it enhances the vibe, it sets the tone, but at no point.
Yeah.
I mean, there are scenes where, again, they're dancing, and it's kind of a lively thing, and it's very immersive, but it doesn't. You're not going to walk away humming that track. There's nothing that you really
No. Yes.
remember about the
That's
music. Yeah.
That's exactly, I feel the exact same way. And so we'll just jump to it. I think like sound, I'm gonna give it a nine. I guess like it's fitting that nothing really stands out except for Beth's death.
Sure.
And that, yeah, nine. It's great. It's so great that I didn't even like I knew it was something I needed to talk about, but I was like, there's really not a whole lot I can say about it.
No, I love it. Look, the Lila signature nine is locked in. That is, of course, as we know, your favorite number to give, and
It
we've got
is.
three locked in. Only one category left, so the drama is building. Will it get a nine? What will it get? The theme in this movie, I mentioned my open sisterhood and rejection and family and these different themes of what I would assume kind of all embody the female experience. Again, I say that as a lion who has a lot of ladies in the pride, so I'm just reporting what I've heard, of course. But although I did rattle off, a game earlier about Sex in the City, so maybe I'm a little closer to the female. Maybe
It's
there's a
Al
little.
the ally. Come on. Yeah.
Al is short for ally. I was gonna say maybe there's a little woman in Al, but I like that the Al is short for ally way better.
Al is short for
Um,
ally. Come on, man. Give yourself some cred.
Lila, what were some of the themes that stood out to you? Obviously, you mentioned you had a really strong emotional reaction to this film the last couple times you watched it. So, what were maybe
Yes.
some of those themes that that pulled that out of you, that resonated with you?
Like sisterhood, I feel like is the bedrock of the theme, and then where each sister goes kind of is more or less back to like one of my first points was the different shades of women or the different shades of like paths that we take growing up as women in general. So the sisterhood being the bedrock of it, I think is beautiful. I think it reminds me of my like my friends. I don't have three sisters, like I said. I do have one, but I don't have like a cluster of them that I've grown with as like, little girls into little women. But the bedrock of the theme being sisterhood and how they've all found ways to be there for each other, to have their differences, but to squash it out, necessarily. And then the almost like four branches of theme, definitely Joe's being like the strongest one that we see because she's our author. This entire story is by her pen, per se, but like the way that Amy finds her path is definitely something that I've thought about for my own life, the way that Meg took her path of both marrying first, but marrying for love, and the consequences, big putting in big quotes, the consequences of marrying for love is that there's going to be hard times that, you're going to see through, but if you have the right partner, can you make it through? And they do. Amy's path of choosing to marry. Also, she marries for love. She could have married for money to a very nice gentleman, but she marries for love. Now, my whole thing with like Lori and Amy and Lori and Joe is that maybe
It's a
we'll have a
tough one.
side
Yeah.
bonus episode about that because that shit, and that's nothing against like Saoirse, Florence, and Timothy. Again, I think that they played those roles like the strongest strongholds. It's a wacky sort of love triangle in my opinion, but it's definitely a plausible one where, it's not wacky like it's bad. It's just so much drama
No, it is a
attached to
lot of
it.
drama. You could
It's a lot of drama.
easily have Little Women 2. Oh no, she did. I
Yes.
think that could
Oh
be
no, she did.
cool. Yeah.
Amy taking her path the way that she did, which recognizing, you know, what women, if you have the opportunity, women should do, but instead takes the path of her heart is again like another, it's every path of the girl's journey leads somehow to them being true to themselves. Even Beth, as short-lived as her path was, true to herself, and then that begs the whole dual ending with Joe. Like, in what respect was she true to herself? And I think she won no matter what. So, sisterhood, bedrock, womanhood in four different branches. Theme, I'm actually going to give it a 10. It was a 10 out of 10 for me. I loved the theme.
Love it. No, I mean, look, if you're gonna break the mold of the 9, I think the 10 is an acceptable way to do it. You want to go up with it. I think that
I
way.
agree. I
Uh,
agree.
no, that look, I love how you broke that down and the way you explained it. To me, I really felt like what the four women and ultimately the three little women sort of represent in many ways is kind of, yeah, one woman, like one whole version of the
Yeah.
female experience. And I feel like we're saying
Yeah.
the same thing, but yeah, each character definitely brings a different slice of the pie, a different perspective, all within coming from the exact same home and coming from the exact same
Yeah.
background, but they all have different ambitions and different decisions they make and different things. And even within contained within that family, there's very clearly an analogy there about the experience that
Yes.
even us boy lions can pick up. So
See? Yes.
we've got all of your scores locked in. I can reveal them. You gave the plot a 9. You gave the characters and performances an 8, specifically because of Bob Odenkirk. Take that, Bob Odenkirk. Um,
Sorry, Bob.
and that Emma Watson Yankee accent. And
Yes.
visual storytelling, you gave a 9. Use of sound, you gave a 9. And the theme, you gave a 10, which is a total of 90 out of 100. Pretty darn good grade there.
I am happy with that.
That's
So very
an
happy with that.
That's an A. Do you want to give it the A plus for the Holiday Classic, or are we bumping it up? Are we keeping it an A? What do we?
Oh,
This is the
I
Joe
know.
moment at the end, Lila, where you have to choose.
Oh my God.
Does Joe get married, or does she stay a single woman? Is it an A or is it an A plus? This is art imitating life here, Lila.
I'm giving it an A plus, and that Joe did what she needed to do to get that deal. That's my thoughts on it. I'm sure that what was his name? Frederick was a perfectly nice guy, and maybe in some ways they did hang out a bit, but I think Joe did what she needed to do to get that deal, and she did. A plus.
The plot, I gave it an 8.5 to your 9. Characters and performances, I gave it an 8 to your 8.
Okay.
Visual storytelling, I gave an 8 to your 9. So just a little
Okay.
behind there. And
A
I
little bit, a
mentioned it
scooch.
earlier, it only because again, I really did wish that maybe more of the film was as visually inspired as just brief little moments that we got.
Yes,
I wish there was more consistency of that. So that's why I gave it an
that's
8.
fair. That's fair.
Use of sound, I gave it a 7 out of 9. Again, good score, but like I said, there's really only one moment that stood out to me where I thought, oh, this is really emotionally impactful. Everything else is just sort of set tone and was kind of forgettable, but still well done. So I gave it a 7. Theme, as we know here on the show, for me to give something a 10 out of 10, I feel like the movie has to itself be an example of what it's discussing. I actually do feel like Little Women is exactly an example of what it's discussing. I feel like just the casting and the group of people who came together to make this is an expression of womanhood, is an expression of this female experience, especially because they are recreating a story that is I assume will be told as long as we're telling stories because it does resonate so much. So I gave it a 10 out of 10 for theme. We matched. So 83 out of 100 for me to your 90. So that's I gave it an A. I gave it a solid A to your
Gorgeous.
A plus. I would hope Greta is pretty happy with that. I've got a couple more movies to review before the show is up, but I feel like this is a pretty good way to start things off.
I think so. That's pretty strong. That's a pretty strong start.
You can support Lila on our merch page. She has some wonderful merch up there. Maybe again we'll make an Al as your ally shirt or something. We'll have to get up there soon. But go over there and check it out. Otherwise, again, Lila, thank you so much for swooping in today. I'm curious, will you would you maybe come back sometime? You've done such a great job, by the way, of covering some of these modern auteurs. You know, you swooped in before and you helped me talk about Guillermo del Toro. Today you helped me talk about Greta Gerwig. Maybe you can come back and talk about another auteur.
Oh, Al, you call, I will fly. I will be there at a moment's notice. I am happy to come back. Thank you so, so much for having me.
Platinum Plastic isn't just a proud sponsor of Real Talk. They're also the home for all our new designs and merchandise. Follow Platinum Plastic on Redbubble by clicking the link in the description and see all our A+ gear. That's Platinum Plastic on Redbubble for all your Real Talk merch. From a trio of superbad teenagers to Napoleon, Dynamite, and Juno, Lady Bird More Than Rides is the titular character in Greta Gerwig's 2017 coming-of-age contemporary comedy. Rather first loves, fighting with your BFFs and parents, or trying to get into college, this is a film that hits on all the hallmarks the subgenre offers, but does it in a way that seems completely unique to Lady Bird, while simultaneously feeling like a life we've all lived. Gerwig manages huge life moments with the mundane in a way that is as unpredictable as the mood of a teenager, but is always sweet and grounded in humanity. No one feels miscast, nor is there a bad performance in the movie, but it's Ireland's Saoirse Ronan, who shines unbelievably bright and creates a lovable vessel for the audience to experience life as a teenage girl in 2003 through. What I love about Lady Bird is its ability to develop layered supporting characters through their interactions with the main character, not independent of her, so their arcs are more profound when Lady Bird is removed. Laurie Metcalf is both the mom you wish you had, but is equally capable of frustrating you with her stubbornness. No character in Lady Bird can freely be themselves without ridicule, but the ones who don't compromise who they are both grow and support the ones they love most. In the end, Lady Bird, or should I say Christine, learns that a rose can call itself whatever it wants, but that doesn't make life any easier. And it's better to be thankful for what your family has tried to give you instead of what they've failed to deliver. If love is giving something your attention, then I couldn't be happier that one of my very best friends, and someone I absolutely love, painter Jessica Collins, is giving me her attention today. Jessica, I know we're a bit high up here in the trees, but please, if you get frustrated, do not dive out.
No problem. I won't. I promise, Al.
Thank you. Oh, well, that's weird that you shook my paw there. But anyway, no, I'm so glad that you're here joining me today. Was this the first time you saw Lady Bird watching it for the show, or had you seen this sometime between 2017 and today?
I either saw it the year it came out or the year after it came out. I can't quite remember.
And I'm curious, upon your first screening, how far did you get into the movie before you realized it had nothing to do with Hank Hill's dog?
The whole way.
Oh, wow. All the way to post credits. I hope that doesn't affect your grade. I got about a half an hour in, and I thought, I don't think a cartoon dog is going to show up. I know you're familiar with the show. We break movies down here in five different categories, and we start with plot. I'm curious, Jessica Collins, what did you think of the plot of Lady Bird?
I thought it was great. I thought it was a great plot. I thought that the movie moved forward very nicely. And the plot actually really surprised me at the end. Like I said, I had seen the movie before, but I completely forgot what happened at the end. And it was actually a little bit, I was taken a little bit aback by it. Most notably, the part where she basically has alcohol poisoning at the end. She goes off on her own, and after her mother has taught her her whole life and criticized her about so many things, and then she's finally on her own, which is what she wanted, she fumbles it and she ends up in the hospital with alcohol poisoning.
I think all great heroes, especially in a comedy, humility has to be a big element of the character. And this movie is always kind of humbling Lady Bird. You know, she can't get too far ahead of things. And yeah, I mean, early on, there's a little bit of a theme of spite that's established, you know, her trying to get into college, especially college on the East Coast. I don't want to say directly despite her mom, but her mom sort of balks at the idea that she can get into some of these better schools. And so you can tell she's really trying to prove her wrong. So yeah, you're right. As soon as she gets settled, as soon as she gets comfortable, she gets a little too far in the bag. I'm a lion. I don't know if that's actually the expression or not. I want to note because I mentioned the airport sequence. For those not familiar, there's a really great sequence toward the end of the movie where Lady Bird is getting dropped off at the airport. But what ends up happening is Lady Bird's mom is sort of upset with her, and so she decides not to take her to the gate, and she drives off. And it's this really great sequence because you can kind of see how Laurie Metcalf goes from being really stubborn to realizing she has made a mistake, and she gets really emotional about it. And she gets all the way back to the terminal, and there's this great moment where she's sort of running in. And I think a lot of movies she sees Lady Bird and there's a big hug, but this movie doesn't give you that. And that I got very emotional. I cried during that moment. That was really rough for me. But at the very end, when she calls her mom and leaves her the voicemail, it's so touching because it's to your point that you just made. It's sort of throughout the whole movie. That's what she's trying to do. She's trying to teach her daughter. She's trying to be there for her. And she finally has a moment to give her a hug and send her off, and she fumbles it. The mom does. But it's still Lady Bird who, you know, when she goes to stand on her own, she kind of needs her mom. And that's a reoccurring theme, and their relationship is a big part of the movie. So we'll get more into that in a second. But I'm just curious, you and I don't want to peel back the curtain too much here, but we may or may not have gone to a high school in the same county. We may or may not have been in high school around the time this movie was set. I'm just curious, was there anything in the plot that really hit to you in terms of like your high school experience, especially because it is literally set in the time that you and I both were in high school?
Around prom kind of hit a little bit for me because
Mhm.
prom is such a big end of high school thing. It's always kind of cliche that the popular kids want to ditch prom, and bringing your friend to prom is a big thing because, you know, you might not get asked out or whatever. But I thought that that felt really realistic. And I was actually really proud of Lady Bird for stepping up and being like, I want to go to prom, and ending up going with her friend and just having a really great time.
And yeah, that was really sweet. I remember prom that night. I ate a gazelle.
I hope it was tasty at least.
There
Yeah.
was no disco ball. Let us know in the comments if you went to the prom or if you live in the jungle. I want to get your score 1 out of 10 for the plot of Lady Bird. Just the plot. What do you give it? Despite the fact that it at no point had any cameos from Hank Hill's Dog.
Well, that definitely deducted a point. I gave the plot a 7 out of 10. It's a plot that's been seen before. It's not anything that's groundbreaking.
I think that's very, very fair. Timothy Charlemagne is an avid listener of the show. I'm sure you can perhaps win him back because now we are talking about characters and performances.
I think that Lady Bird herself, she really made the movie the most believable. Just her attitude, her wit, her style, that sort of thing. Just she was my favorite, hands down.
When they're laying on the floor eating communion wafers with their feet up on the lockers, that's just it's so great. Yeah, no, she's such a phenomenal actress. Sometimes people forget that she was a child actor, a young actress, again, an Irish accent, or I'm sorry, an Irish actress, and you would never know. You watch this movie and she's just the
Right.
American teen. Yeah, I wanna talk about the parents for a second because I really thought it was just interesting the way they were portrayed. And I mentioned in my open, like a movie like Juno or even Napoleon Dynamite, where they're obviously built around this really funny, but unique teenager. This movie does the same thing, but the parents in this movie, I don't know, they're just so uniquely layered and flawed, but warm and touching. I don't, what did you think about Lady Bird's folks, the McPhersons?
If Laurie Metcalf was my mother, I would be terrified of her. Like I would be probably just like Lady Bird pushing back. I thought that her performance was stellar. Like she definitely gave that mom who is overworked, overtired, financially struggling, raising two teenage kids. She definitely captured that perfectly. The father, I mean, he he seemed pretty typical to me in the sense that he's a dad that just kind of like hangs back, and he's supportive of his kid no matter what, but like he doesn't really have much of a backbone. He just kind of does his thing, and mom, whatever mom says is what goes.
The father character, Larry McPherson is the father. He, I don't know, again, he's just so loving and helpful and kind of giving and really is doing everything he can to help manage the situation as much as he can with all the tools he's given. And I just found the both of them really, really charming and just really, really lovable. There's a lot of great characters in this movie. We got to move on. I got to get a score out of you. 1 out of 10. What did you give the characters and performances?
I gave him an 8. I gave him an 8 out of 10.
We got the 8 locked in for characters and performances, which brings us to visual storytelling. Now, you yourself know a thing or two about making visuals. You are a painter. You've dabbled in photography.
Obviously, it was very nostalgic to the time period when her dad hands her first cell phone at the end. Like that cell phone, man, that brought back memories. That's exactly what my first cell phone looked like. The plaid couch, the box TV, the posters all over the bedroom. But one of the big things that I noticed was just the use of pink
Mm.
throughout the film, and I thought that was it was subtle, but it was, I don't know, it was just it was a nice touch because obviously her cast is pink, her hair is pink, her bedroom walls are pink, the two dresses she wears are pink, and pink is such a color representative of innocence. And I thought it was interesting that when she transitions to her college life, that pink disappears and she's more neutralized. Like they're saying this is just an innocent girl in this time period, and then she goes off to college and all of a sudden she's an adult.
Yeah, no, that's a really great note. I mean, there's literally a sequence where she's painting her bedroom walls and she's painting the white over
Yeah.
pink walls, and yeah, that is such a great symbol for her innocence. And that's, I mean, effectively what this movie is. It is about a girl becoming a woman in all sorts of different ways, from an education standpoint, from a physical love standpoint, from a maturing and understanding who her parents are and who her friends are. There's all sorts of things that happen in this movie that's just a tad over 90 minutes. But this is a movie that the edit works really, really well. And it moves quickly. They cover a lot of ground. There's a time period where there's a Thanksgiving, and before you know it, it's New
Mm.
Year. They're touching and I think this movie just covers time really, really well.
Lady Bird, I mean, is obviously it's marketed as a comedy, right? But it doesn't have comedy like pacing where Beanie Feldstein was in Booksmart, and that was comedy. That movie was hilarious, but that was like fast paced. Super bad, even super bad. Like the
Oh yeah.
pacing was faster, so it was quite interesting that the pacing was slower for a comedy. That's how I felt anyway. But I thought the editing was really great.
It's interesting that you note that it's kind of a slow, almost like a slower burn, because it feels like there's a lot of really subtle jokes and they just sort of let them happen and sort of play out. I laughed a lot during this movie. This movie's a lot funnier than I thought it would be. I'm curious, I have a criticism not of the film, but of the marketing in the sense that I actually think Lady Bird has a really bad movie poster. And I say that because if you don't know what the movie is and you just look at the movie poster, this was not a movie I saw when it immediately came out. Tonally, I don't think it represents it all. I mean, I feel like if you look at the movie poster for Lady Bird, you might almost think it's a horror movie or something.
I think you're absolutely correct because right off the bat, I mean, the movie kind of sets the tone, right? With that, with you can tell it's going to be a comedy because that first quote that comes across the screen about hedonism in California, in Sacramento. It's by Joan Didion. And if you know anything about Joan Didion, you know that she's a famous novelist, but I don't think she's necessarily a comedy writer. I don't think at all, as a matter of fact. And you kind of get the sense that, yeah, this is going to be somewhat of a drama, but it's also a comedy. So, and it's won awards. It's won 2 Golden Globes for Best Actress and Best Motion Picture in a comedy or musical. So, I mean, it is a comedy.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think this is a generational movie. I mean, obviously, it's meant to kind of be a little bit of a time capsule. And what's the old saying? The more personal something is, the more universal it is. I believe that's the quote. Let me know in the comments if I botched that quote there. But the reality is, yeah, I don't know. There is sort of an essence to it that feels like it's. I mean, look, what do they say? The only exciting thing about 2002 is that it's a palindrome.
Yeah.
That made me laugh a lot. But I feel like, yeah, there's a lot of things that maybe generationally people might miss. I could see an older audience not picking up on some of the humor. I could see younger audiences watching this in years to come and not really picking up on some of the humor and the jokes. There's a segment that I'd like to play with you now because it's going to transition into a question I'm going to bring up. We're going to play a little segment called "Who Can Cry First?" Okay, and this is great for audio. Well, you just laughed, so I win. That's how that works. No, but there's a really funny scene, and the reason I'm bringing this up is because I laughed so hard, and there's it's when the theater group is sitting around on the floor, and they're doing these acting warm-ups, which is a lion who did improv in college and in high school. I did a lot of funny warm-ups like this, so I was very familiar. But at one point, the acting teacher, the father, he says, we're gonna play this game where we all cry, and he ends up being the one to cry first, which again I laughed so hard at. I thought that was hysterical, but I could see that a lot of people might find that funny. That tonally might work in a completely different way. So yeah, this movie definitely has it has a vibe, and I could see how it might not hit with everybody. But I do have another segment if you'd like to play. I know you lost the last one, so you said maybe we can make it up here.
Yeah, let me redeem myself.
Okay. So this is a segment where we're gonna name a star.
Like a celebrity or an actual star.
Well, per the plot point in the movie we're discussing, I was thinking we would name a star in the sky. But if you want to, I suppose, name or maybe rename a member of the cast, we could also do that. I'll let you decide. This is the first time we've ever had a segment, and then I let the guest decide if we change the segment in real time.
I mean, okay, let's do a star in the sky.
Okay, so if you could close your eyes, you can imagine a star. Again, anyone in the comments can let us know what star they're looking at. Jessica, what do you want to name that star?
I want to name it Ooh, hot ruffles.
Wow. Was that Hot Ruffles? Did I get
Hot
that?
ruffles.
Hot Ruffles. All right. Neil deGrasse Tyson, let us know what you think about that one. Visual storytelling, Jessica Collins, or should I call you Hot Ruffles? What would you like 1 out of 10?
I gave visual storytelling. I gave it a 9 out of 10.
Even a 9 out of 10. That brings us to use of sound. Now, I remember a day where you once directed a music video, so you know a thing or two about use of sound. What'd you think about Lady Bird's soundtrack, the sound effects, the Foley, perhaps? Maybe you have a hot take on the Foley used in Lady Bird. Uh,
Those footsteps were so good.
oh my gosh, they were crisp and crunchy.
So Lady Bird actually like it has a score, its own score by John Bryan, who did very notable films like Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, Punch Drunk Love, and even Step Brothers. He did Step Brothers, which I find hilarious. But yeah,
The movie or the fact that he did three movies that tonally are completely off from Step Brothers. I will say a lot of times I'm watching Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, I go, that sound really reminded me of Step Brothers.
what I found interesting was just that his score does fit. Like it's very folksy. You know, he throws in these minor keys in some of the score that just kind of make it feel a little bit more real, a little bit more tense, that sort of thing. But again, it's not a score that is reminiscent of comedy. Like it just brings it back. Like it didn't feel like it had that comedic level to it, the score. I will say I was quite disappointed that there weren't more contemporary songs of that time period used. Like we have Alanis Morissette was used, which was fun, Dave Matthews Band, um, Bone Thugs and Harmony, but some of the other stuff was some of it was like from the 60s, some of it was from the 80s, some of it from the 90s. I just felt like it could have used a little bit more contemporary music, but that's also because I grew up at that time period. I was around the same age, so it just feels like that stuff should have been in there more.
Spoken like a painter, spoken like a photographer, spoken like not the mascot of a production company who's well aware of how much it costs to license music. And
Yeah.
just a reminder, Lady Bird was made on a $10 million budget, so a very
Oh.
small budget, one of the smaller budget films, especially in recent memory that we've reviewed on the show. So yeah, there are definitely some tracks in here, but I agree. I think it would be really fun if, there were some other hits and stuff in there, but licensing, especially in perpetuity, some of those bigger tracks and bands might add 500,000 or something onto that budget. So in any case, there's one sound effect that I do want to point out before I get your score. When Timothy Charlemagne, whose character will remain nameless, as far as I'm concerned, he's just playing Timothy Charlemagne in this movie. Wonderfully, by the way. That's not a criticism. I just enjoy the movie more thinking that. He is vigorously making out with Lady Bird. They are about to make love. Well, you think they might make love. They end up doing it later, but they just sort of hit a wall. And the noise they make when they hit the wall is so funny. It is just this like, but it is just this cartoonish, like almost Looney Tune, like, and it is so funny. And it just really made me laugh. And I thought it was such a fun little detail in what otherwise, again, it's this sort of awkward sex scene, or again, pre-sex scene. It got extra points in my book, but I'll wait to reveal mine until the end. What did you give the use of sound, Jessica Collins?
I gave the use of sound a 6.5.
A 6.5. The half point, broken out ever so rarely. You've chosen to break out the half point now. You get as many
Yeah.
of them as you like, so it's really not even worth pointing out. But that brings us to theme. There's a lot of themes in this movie. I'm curious before I rattle off a few. What were some notable themes?
Obviously, the number one theme is just like coming of age, some socioeconomic themes, the desire to have free will, And even love and attention is its own theme that was brought up later in the movie. But yeah, it was definitely a reoccurring theme throughout the movie.
Fortunately for a lot of people in life, coming of age is a really bitter experience. And I feel like this
Yeah.
movie does a really good job of being sweet and funny and fun, but still somehow capturing a lot of the bitterness that comes with
Sure.
coming of age. So yeah, no, I really agree. I think that love is just a big theme in this movie and exploring what that love looks like, from a forgiveness standpoint. We didn't really talk about it, but Lady Bird sort of has three boys that she interacts with in the movie, all of them to not so successful. The first boy that she kind of falls for ends up being more interested in boys than ladybirds. He then later comes to her, and you could tell that she's been mad at him and felt kind of both rejected and hurt, and all the things that might come with you know, finding your boyfriend making out with another boy in a bathroom stall. And he comes to her and, pretty quickly starts breaking down. And she just shows him a lot of compassion and forgiveness at
Right.
that time. And that's just a little almost thesis statement about what you're going to continue to see. And Lady Bird, she shows her friend compassion at the prom by going to her house and taking her to the prom. The movie literally ends with her calling her mother and kind of thanking her and showing her love. So I think that love and compassion and understanding your role in things is a really poignant and kind of beautiful theme. To put a bow on all of it, what would you give the theme?
I gave the theme a 9 out of 10.
That's hey, I mean, look, that's perfectly acceptable. You'll find we're not too far off on that one. That gives us a total. I can read you off everything. If you're comfortable, if you feel like all of your scores do not need to be adjusted, I can give you your total.
Let's have it.
You gave the plot a 9, you gave the characters and performances an 8, you gave the visual storytelling a 9, the use of sound a 6.5 because there was no Weezer, and then you gave the themes a 9, which gives us a total of 83, technically an A on our rubric. Would you like to give Ladybird an A, an A minus, a B plus perhaps?
No, I think she deserves an A.
She deserves an A. All right, her math teacher might disagree with you there, but
Yeah.
we got the 83, the A locked in. Well, we were too far off here. To your 9, I gave the plot a 9. To your 8, I gave the characters and performances a 10. I really thought they were high points. I'm not sure I could have asked much more from the characters and the performances in this movie. So got a 10 for me. Visual storytelling, 8.5 to your 9. Use of sound, 9 to your 6.5. So again, the lack of Nelly didn't didn't affect me as much. I gave it a 9. And then I gave the themes a 9.5 to your 9. I really thought this movie, again, just, I don't know, it really touched me at various points in ways that I wasn't expecting. So I gave it a 92 out of 100 to your 83. That's an A plus to your A. Jessica, I really appreciate you coming and watching this. Did you like watching Lady Bird again? Would you watch it again some other time? Are you going to watch it in the future? I guess is my question. What a weird question to ask, but I'm asking it.
I
Is this
really,
your
I mean,
last? Let me rephrase that. Is this the last time you're ever going to watch Lady Bird? Are you done with Lady Bird?
done with this podcast.
Oh, good. Wow. What a great endorsement. A good
No,
time for
I
life.
would absolutely watch Lady Bird again. I think I would probably give it a few years, let myself, forget some of the things that happened so I can be surprised again. But yeah, and I would absolutely recommend this movie to anybody. I mean, especially anybody my age who grew up in that time period and just wants to relive, some of the comedic trauma that may have happened in their life.
It's going to resonate with, again, like you said, people our age, and maybe they haven't watched it yet because they looked at the movie poster or the DVD cover because that's a thing after 2017, and they thought, oh, this is a weird horror movie, and they didn't have any comprehension that this is this hilarious and charming coming of age story. Jessica, you are hilarious and charming. I'm really lucky that you came to the jungle. I know that you shit all over the podcast just moments ago, but I'd love to know will you come back to the jungle someday? And again, I'm sorry I haven't mentioned this before, but thank you for wearing the pink cast. I'm sorry.
I'm not wearing a pink cast.
All right, well, let everybody comment and let Jessica know what yes and means. And
Oh,
No, Jessica, it was wonderful having you here. This was so much fun. Just as much fun as watching Lady Bird is talking about it with you. I love you so much. Thank you for coming in, and until next time.
Until next time, I promise I'll be back.
All right, next time you better have a pink fucking cast.
Yep, I will. Yes, and
Before we jump into the next review, I just wanted to thank you for listening this far, and I ask that you please give us a follow if you're enjoying the show, as well as comment what movies you'd like to hear us score on Real Talk. We're almost certainly on your favorite social media platform, so search Al the Movie Lion wherever you scroll. Greta Gerwig's 2023 summer blockbuster delivers laughs, original music, and production design that brings a timeless brand to life by perfectly marrying contemporary ideals and style with classic Hollywood filmmaking techniques. Barbie explores the experience of growing up and becoming aware of your mortality through the lens of gender roles, or at least hilarious caricatures of them. For every stereotype the film showcases, it also presents a media duality, and no one in the movie, human or toy, is even close to perfect. It's no surprise that a film based on the most iconic doll in the history of plastic uses the female experience as the springboard for its message. But to write Barbie off as nothing more than a celebration of feminism is to miss the point. Like the Lego Movie and Toy Story franchise, Barbie explores the frightening process of considering what it means to exist. But where the characters in those films express feelings of wanting to be needed, Barbie thoroughly traverses the complicated ecosystem of women, men, and their need to exist harmoniously. Spoiler, things turn out alright in the end for Barbie and her friends, but what undoubtedly defines the title character as a true heroine is her accountability and willingness to acknowledge her own shortcomings and the role she played in making Ken feel unwanted. In the end, Barbie is a character that doesn't have all the answers, but operates with pure intentions and learns from her mistakes. So I'm very lucky to be joined again by the incredibly talented director of photography, Jeremy McDaniel. Hello, Barbie. I mean, Jeremy.
I can't believe you had me back. I didn't scare you off. I didn't botch it too bad.
Oh,
well, I'm glad to be here.
Are you kidding me? That
Thank
soothing
you.
voice of yours?
I think this is my radio voice. Do you? Yeah, I'm talking really low. I just want to say, deeply unqualified to be here and talking about Barbie, but
No, get out of here.
This is the second time seeing this movie, and I had a lot of different feelings about it the second time I watched it than the first time. I don't want to say I dismissed it, but my initial instinct the first time I watched this film was, oh, this movie is not for me. But I think on the second watch, I was like, oh, there's actually a lot of layers here that I didn't fully appreciate the first watching. So I'm excited to get into it.
I liked it the first time. I actually liked it a lot more the second time. So it's interesting to hear you say that you also seem to maybe have appreciated it a bit more. This is a really fun movie. This is a movie that has a lot going on, and
A lot
it
going
has
on.
a pretty kooky plot. What'd you think of it?
It's very kooky. I think I mean, listen, you go into this and I'm so glad that of everyone who could have made this movie, it was Greta, because I think that she had an exquisite voice around. And I've always appreciated her as a filmmaker
Sure.
for just like the honesty of her voice as a writer and as a director, and it feels really authentic, you know. And so this could have been a really different movie. So to that end, I think you're going immediately into a really challenging set of like, well, how do you make a movie about a doll, but also a doll that has such like cultural cachet as Barbie, and so it's just so associated for so many with like the female experience of growing up. The first time I watched it, I was just like, this plot feels a little convoluted, but they're figuring it out. And the second time I watched it, I realized pretty early on, and it's one of my first notes that I made to myself is, oh, this movie is intentionally parroting the the experience of women in the world versus the experience of men in inverting it in the Barbie world, to the point that like they think they've solved, you know, sexism, and that like they're very
Yeah.
confused that like they come to the real world and it's not solved. It's like, what are you talking about? We fixed it all. Like the whole intro is basically about like, great, Barbie's fixed it and we're good to go. You know?
It's such a little commentary on how easy when you're in a vacuum and when you surround yourself by like-minded people, no matter what your cause is, no matter what you think, it's so easy to think that, oh yeah, we've got it all figured out, when in actuality it's the exact opposite. It feels like such an appropriate time to be having the conversation. It feels like
Totally.
you said, Greta is the perfect. I can't imagine anyone other than Margot Robbie. It just seems
I
like
mean, she is Barbie. She is
yeah,
Barbie. Yeah,
it seems like in
like,
every way this
and
movie.
to the fact that like they made the joke about was like, don't
Oh,
make this point if you're like the also the Helen the Mirren voiceover, which is like flawless. Of all people, obviously get Helen Mirren to do your voiceover, and then to make that joke at like such a poignant point in the
oh my
movie.
gosh.
Note to
Uh,
the note to the filmmakers.
but it just
But to that point, though, it's a very self-aware movie, which I think is what
absolutely
I do like about it. It's always
it's not
aware of what it
smug.
is and what it's not and what it's trying to do. And I think you have to be with this kind of thing because
Exactly.
it is so it's culturally referential. And so if you took itself too seriously, it would kind of like miss the point.
Yeah.
So the inherent parody, I think, throughout it is just it's necessary and it's really excellent. I think to go back to the plot conversation, I think that I was initially thrown off because you have all these threads, right? You've got, the America Ferrera story and
Yeah.
and then you've got the thread of Barbie kind of figuring out her identity
Hmm.
and then meeting, the creator of Barbie and then that whole kind of character arc and then like the CEOs and the executive staff of Barbie and they're running around and then the Barbies versus Kens cultural dynamic, social dynamic. But going back to watch it a second time, I was like, okay, all of these things are doing something very intentional, and they feel confusing because it's a lot to sort of keep up with on some level. But like, there's so many layers of possible exploration here. So threading that needle is really hard from a storytelling standpoint. And I think that like while I think it's not perfect, it's a very admirable attempt at figuring out
Oh,
how to do that. And I think that all of the things that they do, all the choices that they do make pay off. And I say that because the contrast of the all male CEO executive staff thing, which feels very they're all very like childish and weird, right?
oh,
It's
it's
like
very funny.
such a
Yeah.
strange thing with obviously Will
Train
Ferrell,
of yes, yeah,
fantastic choice,
yeah.
and then meeting in some back corridor somewhere the real creator of Barbie and her intention behind the character. I had this sort of thought that I want to inject in the conversation, which is that Barbie world is the corporate male fantasy of egalitarianism that keeps them in control and avoids actual responsibility.
Well, and I think
Uh,
that's echoed in the idea that when Ken takes over Barbie Land, there is a time where the Barbies are happy. They think that they're happy, and I think what
well,
you
and then they're like, we're making money off the Ken shit.
I think that is in and of itself not a direct reference, but definitely an echo of what you're talking about and how knowing that Mattel or a big brand or quite frankly even a big movie is meant to have a sincere relationship within its audience when we inherently know, look, they want us interested in this because they're going to profit from it. It's a very cynical approach to take, and I think we have to be willing to admit that there can be more to it if we're ever going
Sure.
to expect the creators to do more. And Barbie is
Also,
such
like,
an
I mean,
example of what they
props to
do.
Mattel for being willing to be mocked in this movie, which I think is like, more than a lot of brands are willing to do.
And it works. The highest grossing film domestically and worldwide of 2023. I mean, I think it's an achievement. Everything we're talking about works within the film, but this clearly worked culturally. I mean, I
Oh,
think
and it set the bar for this kind of movie.
it set a bar that I think it might be impossible to top because it is so clever in the way that it handles the very important conversations that it's having. Barbie, with a lot of humility in its plot, sort of suggests that every group could be a little bit more emotionally
Sure.
intelligent, and we all
Sure.
need to learn from each other, and we all need to be able to laugh at each other a bit and fall on our face. And hats off to Ryan Gosling, who, much like Margot Robbie, is probably one of the best looking people of all time, and he is such a goofball in this movie. I mean, he at no point is somebody you'd want to be, and that's
Does not
what.
take himself too seriously.
I mean, Margot Robbie's really great. She's so funny in this and walks that great tightrope of just making a character who how do you bring Barbie to life, and she does it so well because there's so much humility and there is grace, but there's this childlike sort of wonder.
And I think like the Greta and the filmmakers did a really admirable job of making a movie that, like I said before, threads that needle on so many levels and really effectively so. And so like if the fact that they found a way to make this movie and make it so effectively is pretty remarkable.
It is rare that you see a movie and it just feels like an instant classic, and this is such a
Totally.
great example of, like I said, the the creative forces behind it, the cast, the timing of when it comes out. It's really there's a ton of great movies we can point to in the last 5 years, the last decade, whatever we want. But this really does feel like a movie people will be hopefully if all goes well with this podcast, people are still talking about movies in 50 to
Yeah,
100 years. But it really does feel like something culturally we're going to be talking about in the same way, people talk about The Godfather in the 70s.
totally. Everybody that's bringing things to the table, um, marshmallow pink world
Mhm.
of Barbie Land from I mean, like, production design alone is just
Uh,
staggeringly good.
yeah.
But even the way the cinematography leans into that, we can talk about that later, obviously. But like down to like the casting choices, down to the music and the songwriting and the very intentional and thoughtful and deliberate and funny writing, and there's just everybody is bringing something to the table in this movie. It's not like there's not like a clear cut like this is what makes this movie
Right.
work. It's like everybody's bringing something, and the movie works as like a collective sum of all
Yeah.
of its parts, which I think is the best kind of filmmaking because of the nature of what kind of movie this is. Like everybody brought something to the table in like a really special way.
So on that note, what do you give the plot? 1 out of 10.
Grading it on a scale because of the challenges, I'm gonna give it a 7.5.
The next category is characters and performances. And when you're talking about a movie like Barbie, I mean, right out of the gate, the name of the movie, you're talking about one of the most, I mean, next to Mickey Mouse and Jesus, one of the most iconic sort of characters in the American lexicon. And especially when you're talking about female characters,
Sure.
it's a much shorter list, unfortunately, and she's probably close to the top of it. The Michael Cera character, I just thought was incredible. I mean,
Yeah.
such I don't want to say it's a throwaway character, but on a
Oh,
long
it's not a
list.
throwaway character though. He's like this weird bridge. He like
No,
gets both
he's
sides. Sort of.
I probably align more with a Michael Cera than I do a Ken or a Ryan Gosling in
Sure.
that Michael Cera's character is putting in the work. Like he's beating up
Right.
construction workers, he's on top of things, but he is sort of forced to deal with the same patriarchy that the women are, and yet he doesn't really seem to be acknowledged
Right.
by it.
Well,
There's
the
well,
interesting thing about his character, I think, Alan, is that like there is no other Alan. There's just the one Alan. So he's the only character in the whole thing that's just like their own thing.
yeah.
And I think you can tell that he's like struggling with that. He's just like, well, I'm not Ken.
Well, and that's what I think it does so well that the Barbie brand, as I understand, believe it or not, this lion did not play with a lot of Barbies growing up, but my understanding is, that there is this sort of aspect of it where everybody has their own kind of version of Barbie. And when you watch this movie, it really does feel like all these different people are represented. Like I said in my intro, nobody's perfect. Everybody's sort of dealing with similar problems in their own ways. And it is very comical when you talk about the weird Barbie. She is sort of the wizard in this movie, the Obi-Wan, this sort of
Right.
guiding light, but is somehow kind of treated.
Which I also talk about like a fantastic, I
Oh,
know we moved on from plot, but like fantastic plot device
yeah.
is like, oh, the real world playing with the Barbie affects the Barbie world. That's just like, that's such a genius entry point into like, how do we create the problem?
No.
But like, so her character doing that, and then obviously like the inciting incident around, um, what you'll end up finding out is Merrick Ferris' character around like her experience with Barbie and why Barbie's experiencing these things. But that's like such a clever device.
No, I totally agree, and I think that it is it's great to bring up is even under the guise of characters and performances because that dynamic between the characters ultimately is a symbol of what I think is one of the themes of this movie, which is valuing play and valuing
Mhm.
creativity and how you can learn about yourself if you're designing a Barbie or if you're any whatever your hobbies are and how important that creative self-exploration is
Because
always
it's a mirror, right? That like the Barbie world is a mirror to the real world, and so the characters are mirrors of each other. And even in the Barbie and Ken relationship, on some level, they're like they're inverts of each other, and they're mirroring the male and female experience in the real world very intentionally. So it's such a diverse cast of really talented people, and I think everybody's bringing something to the table to their because it isn't just one version of something. To your point about like all the different kinds of Barbies, it's like there's all of these little threads. Same with characters,
Yeah.
and everybody's doing something, and they're pulling their own weight in a really effective way. And so it's obviously our title characters are excellent, but like everybody's great, and the casting choices across the board are great.
There's just so many great faces. There's such a great representation of great female voices and actors and actors, female actors, female actresses from, the last maybe 20, 30 years of cinema. And it's again so rare to have a movie that can handle heavy themes, have hard conversations, but this movie is so funny all the time.
Yeah.
In seeing it a second time, I laughed probably more than I did the first time. I mean,
It's
it's
a really
really
excellent parody of its
so
like of what
clever.
it's just very clever. You can tell that just like everyone's like excited to be there. You've been on set, like what it's like when the set is like good vibes, everyone's
Right.
feeling it,
Palpable. Yeah.
and you really get that it like comes through the thing that you're making. And I think that that's true about this movie. And to like mention Gosling, when I heard about that casting, I was just like, I don't know how I feel about that. Felt predictable in a way that like I didn't love,
Sure. Sure.
but like he brings such an energy to this character. You could tell that he was just like 110%. Like
Oh yeah.
I'm doing my canon. I'm like all in on it. And I love his commitment to the absurdity of the kind of character he's trying to play. He's so dialed into it.
I totally agree. I mean, it's like who else but Hoffman could play Tootsie? Who else other than Robin Williams could play Mrs. Doubtfire? I don't know why I'm thinking of all drag, but
Sure, sure.
but there's
But
a
especially for a guy who has like a reputation playing these like kind of quiet brooding characters,
yeah, no shades of
it's
Ides of March in this performance.
yeah,
Yeah.
no, not at all.
I'll digress in continuing to go forward on characters and performances because it's such a rich movie.
Well, I want to say a thing about the characters in general, which is I think like the female leads in particular, Margot and America, have very authentic performances.
Yeah.
They feel so honest and good. And like obviously Margot is perfect in every sense of the word in terms of like embodying this
Right.
kind of character.
Idealized
But
version.
also like a character who's on a real emotional journey, is not plastic, is really complicated. And at first blush, it seems like a predictable role, but then she just brings the heat with like aplomb in a way that I think, I mean, she's a stellar actor,
Yeah.
but she does a really excellent job in this movie of just like playing both sides of the field, a lot of nuance, being the kind of absurd archetype over the top thing that is
Right.
Barbie, and yet at the same time like going on her emotional journey. So that was really fun to watch.
No, I think it's a really great point. And look, speaking as a mascot, I can imagine, Margot having to play a human that's a toy that's also a mascot, and how we've already said it, we're so quick to go, well, we can't think of anybody else who could do it. The same thing with America Ferrera. I don't know that if you could pick a better actress to play the sort of, I don't want to say the every woman because that has a level of averageness to it, where I'm more or less talking about there's a
There's an
quality to
approachability
her,
to it for sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
that is lovable and authentic. There's the 1A and the 1B. I think she's the perfect choice to play sort of the American woman, the contemporary American woman.
She is like a modern archetype for sure. Like she checks all these boxes of like, what it means to be, a mom and a woman. And like, obviously like you delve a lot into that with her monologue towards the end of the movie,
Yeah.
and which is, I think, really excellent and needed
Oh,
in the
absolutely.
same way that like Barbie is representative of like the like toy experience of women, like they're trying to pick a person who is the real life
Right.
person, that the analog for that, and that's a really tricky thing to do.
Of
And I
course.
think that like she does that really well.
Well, on that note, 1 out of 10. You got to grade it. Characters and performances.
There's really nobody in this movie that's like 9 out of 10.
9 out of 10. All right. Visual storytelling with Barbie. This movie is easy to look at all times. It's so fun and beautiful. Feels like an old Bugsy kind of Berkeley musical style.
The awareness of the background, and like it feels like a
Yeah.
backdrop in like the best kind of way.
As a lion cub, playing with toys was a big part of my experience coming up. There are a lot of toy movies out there that don't even attempt to say, hey, how do we recreate play? And Barbie is the only
Mhm.
movie I've ever seen that recreates play as a lion that never played with Barbies. I thought it was so fun the way she takes a shower and there's no water, or the way she just kind of glides from different places.
The things that are obviously stickers, like there's no milk
Yeah,
coming out of the milk thing. Yeah, no, no, totally. It's not a theme. It's not a movie themed by Barbie. It's a movie that's literally about
right.
the world of
Bring
Barbie
it back to
and
life.
sort of the weird things that like only exist in a child's imagination are true about Barbie world as well.
Right, and I love that it feels at all time like everything everyone's doing. Some kid is playing with this right now. Some
For
kid is
sure.
making this happen. You know, when the Kens are arguing and fighting, or
The
well,
beach you off thing.
yes, all that, which I thought was so funny. When you're in Barbie Land, it really does feel like you're watching kids playing with toys, but on the
Sure.
highest level of production value
Sure.
possible.
Another great example of that is just like when he's like throwing the wardrobe out of
Yes,
and
the
then it just like
pause.
floats in the air for a minute and like says the name of the thing. Also, I should say it's like very intentional throwbacks to people that like know and love Barbie, and I think that you
And
do love. I'd love when you see America Ferrer's character coming into this world for the first time. She's like,
mhm.
I had that. Like, oh,
Yeah,
that
she's
was like it's just
idea.
she's experiencing it as a child.
There's the Lego movie. I grew up playing with Legos, but when I watch the Lego movie, I don't inherently reminded of an experience I literally had while I was playing. Whereas I would imagine when you're watching Barbie, there's just all these moments where again you would go, "Oh, I did have that," or "I did this," or "I
Hmm.
play with it." The way
Yeah.
they present these things that I've never even heard of, not the Paisley.
Right.
It's just
Right,
so
right.
great. Yeah.
Or like the way that like the car drives itself and like she doesn't touch
Yes.
the steering
Yes.
wheel or like yeah, just the things that like obviously that would it's just this is the way the physics would work
And
in a world where a child is playing with it.
easy to talk about the production design, but any comedy, if it's a success, that means you have a successful edit. I've been on a lot of sets where there were really funny people and there was a lot of really funny stuff shot, and it wasn't funny when it got seen because
Right,
the
right.
rhythm was thrown off. This movie is so sharp and again so quick and has a rhythm to it in a tone in a pace that is really consistent. I mean, down to the last line of dialogue in the movie is a punchline.
I also think that the writing as well and just like how well crafted it is and that interplay obviously like editing is essentially like part two of the writing.
Yeah,
Yes, you know.
absolutely.
And obviously so much of comedy is timing towards the end of the movie where
I know
they're
exactly what
like
you mean.
deceiving all the Kens and then like just the way that like they set up the song that they're
They're
all
playing
playing
on
around
the
the
beach.
campfires. The timing of it's so perfect.
There's such a charm to it, and it's really I feel bad for people who maybe aren't checking out the movie or watch it with some sort of resistance because they think that they're maybe trying to that it has an agenda, because I think the only agenda this movie has is to have fun. I really appreciate this film. I'm curious, what do you get? What would you
Totally.
give it out of 10?
It's about effectiveness, right? We talked about this the last time we talked. Because it's so I mean the cinematography in particular, it kind of blends into the background. Like intentionally so, because it's not really meant to be to that extent, like it's very effective because like it lets what needs to be at the forefront, just the performance and the environment and things like that. It's a very visually rich film, and for that reason, I'm going to give it an 8.
I'm going to move right along to use of sound because this is a movie that has original music. For maybe the first two-thirds of the movie is like a very, very pseudo musical, only in that the characters are kind of hearing the songs, or rather, the songs are sort of reacting to the characters. Then we do get full-on dance numbers. Ken, with quite an emotional musical number,
Although
in some of her
it,
pop.
I mean, no, I think your assessment it is not exclusively a musical, but that's also a spectrum, right?
Sure.
I think it's like, no music to rock opera.
Right.
It's somewhere on the low end of the
From
spectrum.
No
But
Country of Old for Old Men to Meatloaf. I think that was the
yeah,
spectrum.
but like even just which is I don't fully think I appreciated the was it the Lizzo song in the very beginning of the movie
Yeah.
where like the dialogue moments in the song that are like referential of what's happening in the movie that are just like really funny.
Yeah.
It's not just like music attached to a story. It's like music that's designed for the story. And I think that is by definition a musical.
You
Well,
know.
we have to talk
Oh,
about the Ken song
yes.
because I think I remember hearing it. It was like Ryan Gosling kind of spearheaded putting into the film, I think it's such an effective and important part of his character arc. I think one of the things that I missed the first time around watching this movie, I didn't feel like they were being, I mean, obviously I'm going to say this isn't my man, but like, I feel like they were being fully fair with like Ken's experience of the thing. And then going back and watching it a second time, I was like, oh no, like they are showing you his like where he's
Yeah.
conflicted. And we'll talk about this with theme, later, but like it's fundamentally a movie about identity. So like I like being having this song where he's just like actively singing about this conflict of what it means to be Ken
Right.
is so important to the film. And just like it's such a necessary bookend to that section of the movie.
Well, and it's his. I mean, America Ferrera has her monologue, her big monologue moment, which I think is kind of like the in many ways sort of the climax for her character and her what she performs. Margot has her scene at the very end where she's talking to her creator, and I think that's kind of the peak in her poignant scene. I think you're right. The song for Ken is his moment. Like that is his time. It's his monologue. It's his moment of growth and realization, and we as the audience get to experience that with him. Look, it's worth saying one of the reasons I did want to speak with another male about Barbie is I feel like it's important for men to see this movie and to talk about it. You touched on this a little bit. I think Barbie is going to be a kind of a hard watch for men and thoughtful men and good men, men that don't necessarily feel like they represent some of the characteristics that are being lampooned in the movie.
Sure. There's a part of it
But
like, well, what about me? Like,
yeah,
well, I'm not. It's very easy to access that, and I think it's important and to say, well, no, hold on,
and I think that watching the movie a second time you almost got that out of the way. It's like okay, well we've
totally.
experienced it because I had a similar experience the first time when I was like, oh, they kind of maybe they did Ken dirty or something like. But watching it the second time, I was like, no, this felt really appropriate. Barbie as a character is meant to be a symbol of independence for women. So for the story to end with both characters, I feel like being more comfortable being apart. I think it is a more profound statement about what it means to coexist. Because to coexist with someone you love doesn't say as much as it means to coexist with somebody maybe you used to love or that you love in a different way.
I would agree with you, and I think it's important for men, especially men who like maybe lean liberal, maybe are trying to be sensitive to the experience of people that are different from you, especially women.
Mhm.
It's so easy to be like defensive around. Well, I'm not like that. Like, but to do that is to miss the point. The point is like,
Exactly.
it's not your experience. It doesn't speak to yours, and you
And
don't need to
you
negate it. Like, let it be what it is by itself, and like understand what that says.
and what I hope would happen, because this is what happened for me while I was watching America Ferrera's, I keep referring to as her monologue. I think anybody who's seen the movie knows what I'm talking about. What she's describing by the end of the monologue feels more like a representation of the human experience than it necessarily
Mhm.
does the female experience. But it is clearly the vessel is female, and so the voice is
Mhm.
female, the perspective is female. And I think that to your point, it's so easy when you are aligning with someone sometimes to be defensive because you feel like, well, if I feel the same thing that you feel, but you're saying what you feel is uniquely feminine, then you must be wrong because we both feel the same thing. And what I think the movie does so well is it allowed me, and from my male perspective, to just comfortably go, oh, I actually align with what you're saying. I experience many of the same things that you're experiencing. And I think that again, when we're talking about coexisting, there is this weird defense that can immediately come up when someone
Yeah,
different than you is describing a similar experience. And I think this movie and what can be so important about cinema is that it allows us to have these conversations. And
totally.
considering that doesn't really have anything to do with music, but
We totally veered into a conversation, but which I think is an important conversation, so I'm glad we're
yeah,
having it. But
yeah.
yeah, it's perfectly whimsical, but really effective from a storytelling standpoint. Did it need to be a musical? No. Like, is it better because of the musical? 100%.
But I am curious, out of 10, what do you rank it? I got to imagine it's on the high side.
8 out of 10.
8 out of 10. Okay. Locking it in. That brings us to theme. This movie, ripe with themes. Coexisting, I think, is a lot about this movie, what this movie is about, and also more importantly, learning to coexist within yourself. I feel like this is a movie that does a really great job of exploring the theme of what it means to be human.
I would say that in a slightly different way, but for me, it's a movie about identity and belonging. The real world is really complicated, and there are all of these forces pulling on you that ask something of you. And you have this whole cast of characters from Barbie to Ken, all struggling with what it means to be who they are in a world that's like asking them to be something else. If you try to define your identity externally, you will never feel right. You'll never feel good enough. It will always be inadequate. One of my favorite moments in the film is the last sort of dialogue scene between Barbie and Ken, and she says to him, "Maybe all the things that you thought made you aren't really you." And I was like, "That's what this movie's about. What does it mean to be you? How is what it is to be you defined by others? And what is, how do you have the bravery to break out of that?"
I guess if I were to point out, I don't know that I want to even say a flaw, but when we get to the end, the sense of community that we're left with, it seems less about that because we journey with Barbie then kind of in her decision to what it seems
Yeah.
like not be immortal, which I thought was a
Yeah.
really great representation of what what growing up is. Growing up is recognizing
Hmm.
that there is
That's
a
an interesting take. Yeah.
I don't know.
Hmm.
I felt like thematically that was a really kind of like
I didn't
beautiful
think about
way.
it. I didn't think about it in terms of growing up. I'll be honest, that of all the things about this movie is what I struggle with the most. I don't know that I fully buy into the choice of making her human. That's a good choice for her journey, but I do understand, like when you say it like that, I can understand
Well,
that,
I
it's
also,
a metaphor. Yeah.
what would you give the theme out of 10?
Well, I'm gonna say 9 out of 10 on the
9 out
themes.
of 10. All right. Remember, not a 9.5, just a solid 9.
No, I know how your system works. I know your game is played. I'm sure I'm gonna be disappointed by my final score.
For plot, we've got 7.5. For characters and performances, a 9. Visual storytelling, an 8. Use of sound, an 8. And theme, a 9. That gives us a total of an 83. Do you want to adjust that? Do you want to make that
Gonna
an
grade on the
A?
curve. I feel
You
like
want
it.
to grade
No,
it
it's a B plus.
a B plus?
It's an 87. It's just a really solid film. Maybe if I'm discounting it at all, it's because it's just like an innate flaw of like the genre and what they're like what it is that they like are bound to on some level with the movie like this.
Well, you gave the film a B plus, an 87 is your adjusted score. I gave the plot an 8, very similar to you. You gave it a 7.5. I gave it an 8. I gave the characters and performances a 10. I know that's sort of blasphemy in your grading system, but I don't think you could get a more iconic performance than Barbie and Ken out of this movie. And with all the other performances, for me, that was a really comfortable 10. Same with the visual storytelling, same with the use of sound, and same with the theme. I really like
Listener,
this.
I would just say consider the scale differences between Al and I, and then
Absolutely.
just grade me on that curve, please.
Look, I sleep 22 and a half hours a day. I think that I
Wow,
come into these reviews with
not
maybe
just
a
certain
little
times of the
less
year.
stress. I mean,
That's
look, it's
amazing.
it's a lion vibe. I gave it a 96. For me, it was an easy A. I'm really glad that I got to watch this a second time. I'm glad I got to
Totally.
watch
I'm
it
so
today.
glad that you made me watch it again because I don't know that I would have gone back to it. And I honestly like totally changed my experience of the movie. And I'm really glad I saw it again.
Would you come back to the jungle and watch another movie with Al?
I will always watch movies, Al.
Thanks for listening, and here's a look at the scoreboard from our show. Lila graded Little Women a 90 and an A plus to my 83 and an A with an average of 86.5 and an A. Jessica Collins scored Lady Bird an 83 and an A to my 92 and an A plus with an 87.5 A average. Finally, Barbie scored highest with an 83 and a B plus from Jeremy McDaniel and a 97 and an A plus from me with an 89.5 A average. I would love to know your scores, so please let us know what you graded each film in the comments. I want to thank Lila, who also contributes to Gummy Ship Radio, which is linked in the show description. You can support Jessica by following her on Instagram, and go to jeremymcdaniel.com to see his portfolio and book him today. Join us next time on Episode 9, an Archetypes Examined special focusing on man versus nature. Director and dear friend Dominic Smith will grade Anaconda, Jimmy the Toucan returns to talk The Revenant, and comedian Matt Summerstein scores The Edge. Thanks to the team at Real Digital for producing this episode, and Platinum Plastic, who supplies our show's merchandise on redbubble.com. If you haven't left a like by now, you might as well, and subscribe to the channel, as well as hit the bell icon to be notified when Real Talk drops twice a week. Thanks for listening, and if you're gonna talk movies, make sure it's Real Talk.
Listen, if your mother had the abortion, we wouldn't have to sit through this stupid assembly.